That's already kind of outdated a little bit. And when you want to interact in VR, in the dimensions, so there's two different types of VR. Obviously, you can film things in VR. You use special cameras to do that. Or you can design things in a 3D modeling program, a 3D a game engine, we call that. And that's allows you to look under things or over things, or it's the image is not static, it's dynamic and interactive. Okay. If there's any questions, by the way.
Not yet.
Okay, if there's any questions, please let me know, eh? Okay. And sometimes the VR has feedback, so it's haptics. So that means that you have gloves on and you can feel stuff. Okay, I usually show this video. I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear the audio? Can you hear the audio? Okay, then that's not a problem. But this is a very early VR experience. And it is an experience where you're being transported in an elevator to the highest floor. And then there's a plank, and there's a real plank in reality. And people, as you can see, are like completely freaking out, right? They're really scared because they feel like they're on top of a building looking down, right? As you can see. Now, the reason why I usually show this to my students is that there is no medium in the world that makes you feel that you're actually there, right? There is nothing existing that really transports you and gives you the feeling that you're at that place at that time, okay? So VR is, in my opinion, extremely powerful. And when we're developing metaverses in the future and we're meeting people there, you might lose track of time and might lose track of your personal self. I've been in VR for, at one point, for 7 days, for 10 hours each day, for a week. So being in VR, I was making a film. And it completely kind of disconnected me a little bit from reality. Okay. We have to acknowledge that it's in its infancy. So there's a thing called Moore's law, which states that processing power goes, goes exponential. Now, people say Moore's law is not feasible, but it is, and we have to imagine that if these graphics become more dynamic and more realistic, then what we see right now in VR is just the beginning. And as we are developing for this project, you can imagine that it becomes a social medium, right? It's an interactive social medium where we meet each other and we interact with each other. So it's not a singular thing. Yeah, it's not something like a computer. It's not something where we do, stuff with you do right now. There's kind of new applications, and we don't know what is going to happen. Yeah, is it clear, Tanaka? Yeah. I think there are some ideas about VR that I think are kind of limiting the medium. These conventions that I think are kind of untrue. And one of the things is that it's like a fake reality, right? There's reality, and then virtual reality is fake. Well, that's something I don't believe in at all. It's not fake. It's actually a different type of reality. And our reality is governed by, molecules and gravity but this reality is governed by bits and by algorithms. Yeah. Whatever you accept to be reality is in fact reality, and that's something that I didn't come up with. David Chalmers, a very famous philosopher, came up with these kind of concepts, right? People think it's like a next step in film or gaming. I don't believe so. I think it's far more immersive. It's far deeper. It's far more relevant because it really changes your opinion about yourself and your context and your contextuality, right? I think at this moment we also think of VR as something that should be there already because it has been developed by Apple or by Meta in 2014 and it's 2022. So why isn't this a global thing? But if you think about film, the early days of film, there was like in 1870, 1880, something like that. And it took like 100 years for films to look like the films that we're watching today. And we see a lot of people that come from game development moving into the VR scene. So it still has a lot of gaming aspects to it. It still looks a lot like a game. Now, I'm not going to show you too much of these industry things. Sometimes I do this presentation for companies, but you want to know that there are some major players in VR: Oculus, Microsoft, HTC. Now, this already this got dismantled, this company, but Apple is going to join the fray. And when it comes to development of these 6DoF experiences, which means 6 degrees of freedom, which
I do have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned that like the immersive experience kind of changes you as a person, like changes your perspective. Also,
imagine that you're in VR, but you have the body of a man. And you're walking around with the body of a big fat guy. And I tell you that you really feel that you have that body. I did some experiments with students, and we did body swaps. People in the body of a black man, or people in the body of a white woman, or people in the body of an abstract figure, and to see if they are, and also multiplicities. So you don't only see yourself once, you see yourself in a space multiple times, or you see yourself very big, and whenever you do the movement, the mirror image does the same movement. And you really feel that shift inside of you, your bodily awareness.
so what makes you feel like that? Because I'm guessing like you're imagining yourself in somebody else's body, but how does that make you feel like you are them?
Yeah, I want to say two things about this. One thing is that, first of all, your brain is conditioned to respond to whatever you see, right? So whenever you see blood on your hand, you have a cut on your hand, you see blood, your brain responds with fear, or you might pass out, or something, or even if you don't feel it, right? There's some experiments where people kind of have this rubber hand next to their real hand, and there's a screen in between, right? And they only see the rubber hand. Yeah. And then they don't see their own real hand because there's a screen here. And then somebody manipulates both the rubber hand and their real hand. And their mind says, oh, the rubber hand is my real hand because I'm feeling the same things. Although I kind of know it's a rubber hand. And then when somebody slams the rubber hand with a hammer, they get shocked because they really believe within a minute that it's their real hand. I have another lecture called Embodiment in VR, which might be interesting. Maybe if we have time, I can show you a little bit more about what embodiment does. But it's a big role. And then the second thing I want to say is that when you're designing something like a metaverse, this is very important because you're creating a community in a metaverse. You're allowing people to access a space in a certain form, but you decide what form that is. Yeah? And if you want to create equality in a space, like all of you, can you maybe put on your camera, the ones that can, please put on your camera. I have a question for you. This is an interesting question, okay? For me, and I think also for you. If there would be a place like a FOMA land, right? And a FOMA land, what we're developing is a place for people from non-Western countries, artists and artisans, to create a community and to show their works, right? What kind of avatar would you create? Like hypothetically, let's say a FOMA land is only focused on Africa. Let's just keep India and South America aside, just only on Africa. What would you like to see? Would you think that it would be beneficial for the avatars to look like, have traditional African elements to them? Or would you think that it would be better if they would have a more universal character or more modernized, or just maybe kind of what you see in everyday life in Cape Town or whatever? I want to first ask Mary, what do you think about this?
I think it has to, we all like ask, versions of the melanin have to be represented, the different body types have to be included. Then also, like, it's a whole thing, very.
So I kind of lost the last part. I kind of missed. Sorry.
Yes, I believe that Africa is diverse. We have a diverse range of skin tones, body types. High that, and I think it's important that all those people, all those variations are represented in the metaverse, because that is what makes Africa. Yeah.
But when it comes to clothes, right? Do you think that there should be some representation of these kind of traditional African, garments, or for instance, or do you think
Yeah,
yeah, you think
I
that's
think
important?
yes, they should be as well represented, but we have to also consider the fact that we don't wear them every day, but they are part of our culture. So there has to be an opportunity for the users to personalize these outfits to their.
But if I'm a white user, I'm not white, I'm half white, but if I would be a white user, would I then be have only kind of African garbs that I can choose? How would that make me feel if I would walk around, walking in traditional African clothes? Would that be correct?
Not really. It would sort of come off as culture appropriation, but I think it should be.
Okay, these are really relevant questions. Tanaka, what do you think?
I think I would want maybe the avatars to be more in a traditional sense rather than like what we see now. And also a progression of like what the traditional avatars would look like a futuristic traditional sense, like how, say we used to wear our cultural clothes, right? Like back in the day. I would want to see maybe how that would have evolved to up to date, and maybe how it will into the future. So something along those lines.
Okay, okay. Just one more thing for the people here. If you want, and this is absolutely just a want, I want to extend the design challenge or the design project with one more thing. You can also decide to design an avatar for a FOMA land. And that's, you know, with the same kind of benefits, but just if you want, you know, you get name mentioning and you can take the project up in your design, and if we get it online, and but that's, I think, I because I just think about this right now, I think that's also kind of relevant to see different people think about this. But what do you think, Precious? I'm really keen to know what you think, and then I want to go to Cecilia, and then I want to go to Ikucheku. Sorry, Ikucheku. What do you think, Precious?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, of course, if a farmer decides to use for Africa, so I feel in order for it to be, you know, accessible and all of that, at the end of the day, we know they are white-skinned Africans and all of that, but it's more generated by black-skinned, right? So they should be able to, it just depends, just include everyone's diverse cultures, something that somebody, you know, from Nigeria can relate to, somebody from South Africa can relate to, somebody from Ethiopia can relate to, somebody from Mozambique and the rest of African countries. It doesn't have to be so broad, but just something. At least if I'm here in Nigeria, if I see an Hausa man outside, probably through his dressing, I can say, okay, this is either an Hausa man or a Fulani. So that's just basically how it should be. So it's something that everyone can easily relate to. It doesn't have to like give all the details of the cultural.
But do you still think that people,
Yeah,
in most people in Africa have that kind of cultural sentiment, or do they want to be kind of modern and hip and, you know, don't, or do you still think that that's a very important part? It's just a question. I have no idea.
that's actually a question. Let's say now, if I am working on a project, and it's not like if I've worked on projects that, you know, I needed avatars, African illustrations that represent Africans, black skinned people. It's quite difficult to get illustrations that you know, portray a black skinned person. So these things are the issues. So if anybody can build something for Africa, then it should relate totally to what we see every day, what we can relate to, basically structures that we can relate to, and dresses, cultural dresses, and environments, basically, that, you know, one way or the other relate to us. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, Cecilia, what do you think? I want to ask everybody. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Cecilia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think both tradition and modern should be involved. Just like Precious said, if we happen to design this, a person in Nigeria will be able to be comfortable with the design. A person in Uganda will also feel the same thing. One thing I understand when it comes to designing is that a designer can only design for a person if he or she understands how that person relates to the world. One of the values, yes. So this will help contribute to the development of methods for designing with newest technologies. And the social distribution of ideas, thoughts, and values is important, knowing that buildings are influenced by society, and to some extent, society can be influenced by these designs as well.
Exactly. And so can you all now see also why I can't develop the buildings or the avatars for Fomaland? I could do anything. I can design anything I want, but why it would be for me wrong to do so? I feel I have agency to develop buildings when it comes to Indian culture, because I'm like I'm brought up with Indian culture. To develop something in relation to, I think, Western culture. But it would be wrong for me to create something which is just 1 second. I have to change networks. Okay. If you have 1 second, I'll change network. Okay.
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 Hi, I'm back. Yeah, sorry, I had to change networks. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, about how I think that it's this, you design from your culture, from your own background, right? But I do think, and this is the thing, and I don't know what you guys think about it, but I want to come back to the avatar point. I do think that as an African, you can design for a non-Western project to an extent.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest thing, because that has to do with the fact that we are kind of projecting our culture already on Africa, right?
Yeah.
So if we are forcing that upon you, I'm saying, I don't mean you and me. It's just we're all one. You know, to be honest, I totally feel that we're all one person. But I just want, sometimes this design thinking course is also for us to really become aware about the difference in perspectives in the world and the different power structures in the world, because that's what crypto is all about. It's about redefining power structures, and the metaverse is about redefining cultural platforms. So these are kind of discussions that we I think are important to have. Huh? So as, oh sorry, Ikachuku is gone again. So and I just want to say that we're coming back to the presentation for any second, but I just want to say that I more or less this whole course is about us discussing things and not accepting things and not accepting my opinion, but thinking for ourselves. Also, that's what yesterday's blockchain small mini presentations was, also just to activate your own opinion or your own structuring of information, right? Not, I'm not only feeding you information and that you have to consume it, right? It's about this interactivity. Okay, I'm going back to the presentation. Thank you so much. I just want to show you a little bit like, so what you think about African culture is usually these kind of very traditional garbs, but then you kind of would resonate, I think, in my opinion, to a modern type of version of this, obviously, because it's metaverse is obviously also modern, but that's just my opinion. Okay, I'm going back to the presentation. So when you create something in 3D, right? And I'm going to show you later today a little bit about these steps, but basically you have 3D objects and you put them into a game development platform. Unity is one, Unreal is the other, and A-Frame is the third one, and there's some other ones. We're going to work in A-Frame within our project, right? Just to give you an experience how it is, how to work with this, okay? Unity is really good to experiment and it's pretty nice, but Unreal is kind of the standard for the aesthetics at this moment. Unreal is a game engine which builds the nicest images. And A-Frame, which we're going to work in, it's very low quality, but then it allows for everybody to access it. So it is a large community. A Foamerland is going to be built in Unity. And our project, where we're going to try to present our project, it's just an experiment. We're going to try to do that in A-Frame, okay? Now, you have high-end, very expensive gear, and then you have low-end, and you have cardboard. I don't want to bother you all too much with this, because this is absolutely not relevant. It's not going to be relevant anymore. There's going to be a lot of high-end, cheap high-end, cardboard is going to get completely annihilated. So when we're, and this is the most important bit of the presentation. So this is the moment where you want to be active. And so when we're prototyping, we already took the step of taking a mood board and taking a sketch. But now we have to think about two things. You have the user interface and the user experience. So I'm going to make it as less boring as possible, okay, guys? I'm going to do my ultimate best. The user interface is way that we kind of organize content and the way that we navigate, right? So for instance, if you create a gallery space, right, then you have a wall here and a wall there, and you put your art on it. And then organizing content for methods of navigation is that you point and click, or you press a button and then you can move forward, right? And there is just two, for instance, two rows of sculptures, and that's how we organize it. That's the interface. You interact with that. That's the way you interact with it. Now, the user experience is how you feel about that. If you create very beautiful organic structures, then you may feel really at home and really, or you're out in nature. If it's very rigid and made of concrete, this experience is very maybe modern, or maybe gives you a negative feeling. And maybe walking around is very difficult. Maybe if the user interface was that you can just type in, I want to go to the library, and you get there, that it allows for a better user experience because you don't have to walk all the way to a place, right? So the user interface is how you organize things, and the user experience is how that organization kind of gives, what kind of feeling it gives you. So we're in this workflow right now where we are just coming from an idea to concept development, right? And we're just starting to do the 3D modeling part. That's gonna be for next week, and then we're gonna test it in Mozilla Hubs, and we're gonna publish on Sunday. And listen, I just want you all to understand these steps. I don't want to force you anything to make the best work ever. There's too little time in this course to just only focus on the product, right? This course is mainly to make you think differently, but we're going to do it anyway. Now, what do I mean, Cecilia? What do I mean when I say most VR projects are programmed to the capacity of the user? Cecilia, are you there? Ah, okay. Mary, what do you think when I mean most VR projects are programmed to the capacity of the user?
I'm not so sure, but I would like to think it all comes down to user friendliness and the ease with which the users can, navigate around the entire interface and also work with the things within the 3D space.
You're on the right track. You're on the right track. But what I actually meant was that, we as users, what are we? We're humans, right? So, and we humans have a sort of a particular way that we look at the world, because we have a spine, and we look at the world in a horizontal fashion. If you look at your house, or everything in the world is kind of designed horizontally, right? And that is because we are looking at the world like that. Yeah. But in a virtual reality, we don't have to. Okay, we don't have to follow those rules anymore. I just want to show you a video. And this is an old video, as you can see. This is a student, an art student, and she's participating in an experiment. And the experiment is that the scientist has glasses where she sees the world upside down. So she can't see anything, but she can only see the world upside down. Yeah. And what is kind of startling and what is kind of unique about this is that at first it's very difficult for her to orientate. But after a while, she gets the hang of it and she kind of can do anything like normal because her brain adapts. What you might not know is that our brain actually kind of converts the world as we see it upside down. Because of the optical nature of our eyes, we kind of, the world turns, our brain flips the image already. You didn't know that, right? But it does. Look it up. So I have this thing called a linear method, and there's a non-linear methodology, okay? Linear is when we create something that is very similar to our reality. What we're going to do is a linear method, which means that everything we design is going to be more or less how we experience the real world. Like the buildings, they are kind of horizontally orientated. We walk on a floor, okay? Which is recognizable. It doesn't make you feel sick or anything. But you can feel sick if you go upside down and, you know, things move back and forward and things move against time and that kind of stuff. And that's nonlinear. It's an abstracted world where you can do kind of things that you can't do in the real world, right? How many of you are architects, actually, or students, architectural students?
I'm not a student though, but I'm an architect.
Yeah. So basically, there's something called non-Euclidean spaces, which means is that there is not only a first dimension, not only a second dimension, not only a third dimension, but there's also a fourth dimension, right? Non-Euclidean spaces, they are only accessible in a three-dimensional environment because they're based on math. And in these spaces, we can transport through walls or can make things exist that don't exist. It's a very interesting aspect to designing within these confines, but it's abstracted. It makes our brain go, ouch. But it allows us, after a while of adaptation, to maybe create hyperfunctionalities because our world is not really efficient sometimes. So if you maybe create a system where you need to access all the information in the world and you want to do it at one glance, you want to do it in one time, and see kind of a hierarchy, and you want to access it through that hierarchy, maybe you need to design something that is non-Euclidean, okay? So conclusion is it's becoming really relevant, especially for metaverses. We can do it really on a high level, like in Unity and Unreal, or we can do it on a more low end. The environment is the user interface. So the environment that we create, that's actually the organization of these assets, right? It's the user interface and there's a user experience, how you feel about it. And we can do things that are going against our kind of, you know, intuition. Who has questions at this moment? Yes, Mary, please.
I've been wondering what the metaverse is going to do on the topic of inclusion for people with disabilities, because I'm saying it's more of a visual aspect. But then when it comes to people like the blind, how do we work around that and give them a chance to be included in the metaverse?
Good question. There are different types of disabilities. You have people that can't walk, that will find great joy and spaciousness.
Yeah.
And there are people that are blind that will probably experience the metaverse equally as this universe, because they can't see it anyway. But I think that there's a thing that's called Neuralink that will maybe help a lot of people see again at one point that are blind. But on the other hand, we can also design things that are audio metaverses, right? These audio-based metaverses. So these designs could be very optimized for people that are blind. There's actually a VR experience that's called a VR experience is called what's the name again? No, I have to come up with it, and it shows you an experience of how it is to be blind a bit, but I think it's very weird because it also has visual aspects to it, and blind people actually don't see it. But that's a good question. But think about this: if you are not able to walk, or you have a handicap that makes you feel very bad, and you are not socially able to connect because of, you know, maybe you had a surgery or something, you don't feel good about it. In the metaverse, there you know you can express yourself exactly how you want to express yourself. I would secretly have the feeling that I'm a woman, but I would be very uncomfortable expressing that. In the metaverse, I can become a woman. So it really opens up to a lot of opportunities and freedoms, but also kind of we have to moderate that very well, because it also allows for people to be like, if you look at, this is the biggest problem of metaverses. If you look at cyberbullying, you know, things people say to each other on Twitter. Now imagine that is just on paper almost, like that's two-dimensional. But when that becomes three-dimensional, that it has a lot more impact on the person, right? And one of the things that we found really difficult is how to get around people that are bigots in a place like Afoma land, right? So if you have Afoma land and you have people walking around and they're, you know, from a non-Western country, and that could also be a target for people that are racist or whatever, right? And if you have open access, which is decentralized, is open access. You know, decentralized means anybody can come, anybody can join the party, right? Then if you get that experience once, that there are people in the Afoma land that are being negative or that being aggressive, you don't want to come there again. You know, you don't want to be a user of Afoma land if that's a place where everybody comes to get harassed or something like that. I mean, I'm saying this because these are very important topics in the metaverse thinking, design thinking. You know, in regards to Afoma land, I'm not keen on having people, and although I totally agree with everybody that says everybody, and like you said, there should be a sort of a choice for a person to choose their skin tone or to choose their, you know, gender or whatever, you know. I'm not a true believer of that at all. To be honest, I want everybody to look the same. And they can maybe choose materials, like you can be gold or you can be silver, and you can be marble or you can be like made out of sand or stuff like that, right? But I don't want people to have a choice in that, because I do think that the garments and the clothes could be kind of expressing that, but the figure itself should be universal. I think that there's more opportunity there, because it's not because I don't want to kind of say that, hey, it's a difficult place for Afoma to create something uniquely for as a non-Western culture, but I think all metaverses should be kind of have a universal appeal to it. I don't believe that we should see races or something like that anymore at one point, if we can help it. But that's an interesting topic for later, and it's something also. It's in discussion with me within the organization, with other people within the organization, how we are thinking about these things, because we're doing something quite unique with Afoma land. Actually, to be honest, there's actually nothing like it. And every decision we make, right, Igifat, every decision we make is put through this lens of cultural appropriation and the discourse around race and stuff like that. And that's actually quite a big challenge, to be honest, but something I really like, because I think it's valuable, you know. Okay, Gifat, hey man, how you doing?
I'm good. Sorry for being late.
Don't worry about it. We're just about to show and tell. Do you all want to have a break, 10-minute break? First?
Okay, yeah, sure.
What do you think? Tanaka, you want to have a short break?
Yeah, short break would be nice.
Yeah, 5 minutes, and I can get some coffee and everybody can stretch their legs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a 5-minute break. Yeah,
Hello.
buddy, already there? Hello? Hey. Oh, that's a lot of people.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I just switched networks. But for the people that are just joining now, you kind of missed an interesting discussion, and I just want to say that obviously, you know, I'm all about efficiency, and people that, you know, want to join the course and, you know, couldn't come in class but feel that they want to do the assignments at home, that's fine. I kind of feel like that you're missing out yourself, you know. I mean, this course is it's not that much time, you know. It's I think an important part of anybody who wants to develop themselves within Metaverse. It could be very helpful, and it's an investment into yourself. So great, everybody, for now joining. I wish that everybody would be all the time here, but for the ones that are here, deep respect. And then next week, I hope to see everybody, because we're finalizing at one point. Okay. So, how many of you have kind of did the drawings already? How many of you are sketches? Now you can put the reactions. You see in the bottom, you see reactions, and you can put your thumbs up if you have worked on sketches already. I know, Precious, you told me that you had some difficulties with that, but I just want to add that that's not a problem. We're going to help you get to the point. So I see only Gifat. Is nobody, the rest of you is not working on sketches yet?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, well, we're going to move forward. So I'm just going to ask Gifat then to show the sketches. Tanaka, did you already were able to sketch stuff?
Not yet. I'm still working on it.
Okay, well, if you can show anything, that would be great. Do you have some?
No, not that's what's showing, no.
Okay, well, Gifat, please enlighten us. Can you share your screen and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
So what I have is not really complete, but
That's not a
I just want
problem.
to share it with that. Yeah. So give me a second. I need to take pictures of these and put them on the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to tell you that what we also are about to do today is just to show you a little bit of the 3D workflow. So I know maybe the pace is a little bit fast, but I think, you know, I've been doing this with students for a couple of years now, and I feel that it's kind of already, you know, good to be in this phase of the design. So today we're gonna work on like how to create 3D models as well. But I just want to first see Ikachuku. Can you hear us though, Ikachuku? Maybe you can put your thumbs up if you can. So we're going to talk a little bit about 3D modeling and 3D design. And I just want to see Gifat's progress so far. Because Gifat, you actually want to design something for Afoma, eh? Hey Gifat, are you there? Maybe we just have to wait 1 second. Okay, Gifat, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Because you
Yeah,
want to design for something for Afoma, right?
Yeah, I'm designing something for a former, yeah.
Great. I think also maybe we should talk a little bit outside of the course. I just want to give you a little bit more information on that if you would like.
Yeah,
For the
that would
one,
be great. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also that also counts for the other people that want to design for Afoma. I just want to give maybe you guys sort of a time slot that we can just talk a little bit more about how that would look like and how we will design. Yeah. So, Gifford, are you ready to share something?
Almost. I'm just trying to send the pictures to my laptop so I can upload it.
Perfect. You have a little bit of time.
Okay. Pictures right here. Okay. All right. So I'm ready now.
Cool.
Let me share the screen. Where is it? Okay. So all right. So I found this picture during my research, and I found out that this picture is like a perfect embodiment of Ghanaian architecture in terms of having the textures, the voids, the patterns. It sort of looks like a courtyard building. I mean, that's a kind of impression I'm getting from it. The way the person is standing in the shade under the tree and all that kind of gives me the whole Ghanaian architecture in one image. There's something I researched on what the culture is really about, trying to get a concept for the design. And on further, I think I got 3 concepts initially. The first one was an umbrella. So I realized that, I mean, in Ghana, we have lots of chieftaincies. I think every region in Ghana has a king or a chief that resides over the place. And one thing that runs through all of them is an umbrella. So in the images over here, the group of chiefs from different regions, and they all have their own unique type of umbrella. So the umbrella was what I was going to use for my concept initially, like basically putting umbrellas together to design the building. But later I found out that there's a cathedral currently being built in Ghana, and that was a concept they used for it as well. So I just moved from that one to try and get something different. And then I remembered about the square and circular spaces. So I looked into it and I found this philosophy called bigamy. It's basically combining two forces together, 2 opposing forces in a sense. I mean, a circle has no edges and only 1 edge, and the square has 4 in order. So basically combining these 2 from the buildings that I found in the earlier presentation where they had the square and the circular units in the courtyard. So this idea is basically combining the two to try and get one form out of it. The unique thing about it is that when I was combining, I got this idea over here where it's kind of embodies what the Ghanaian architecture is about, right? There's a courtyard in the center, and the way the things come out, it kind of creates this kind of privacy, even though it's part of the whole building, you end up being in your own private space. Yeah. So this is basically just trying to think and trying to get something over here. The building is an educational center, right? So spaces were going to be arranged in this order. So the ground is going to be a showroom where a lobby. We have the first floor being mainly for administrative purposes. And in that sense. The next might be the school itself, the classrooms, more like a technical school. The next one is vocational. So each level will have a different type of lesson that is going to be taught. It's not going to be based on age, or it's just going to be based on what is being taught in that area. So if it's a social science level, what's going to happen over there. Now, this is kind of an image of what it's going to look like. The shape was gotten from this structure over here. Yeah, this one, and where is it? Yeah, this one over here.
But also a little bit like the shape, the pink one, I think, you know, when you're looking at these in the middle, the small picture above the left a little bit, that one,
This one, yeah. So this one's yes, great. So the difference between mine, this is for this one, the voice are going in, mine it's coming out. It also comes down to the idea where you want to have that kind of the open, the rooftop sleeping areas, right? So to mimic that effect, I was trying to create this kind of opening them out so that one each vine or each branch has its own opening to the sky, and you see these lines on top of it. It's kind of the idea is to create this kind of palm tree effect where the light kind of penetrates through the spaces from the roof. It's not really like a palm tree, but then the effect the palm tree gives. You know, it has these vines and the light tries to penetrate through, and it gives this kind of nice shadow art effect. That's the idea for each space. Now the curvature, yesterday we were talking about the square rectangular classrooms and compared to the circular ones. And I was thinking about like, okay, so if that's the case, then it means that having this kind of curved spaces would really allow for, the lecture rooms to be more engaging, reduce that segregation of this person's in front, that person's in front. Everyone is getting to see the lecture in front. So it's not one room, but then it's going to be a series of rooms in that space. 1 second. So I managed to try and get a quick model to try and really explain what it's going to look like. And this is what I managed to do quickly. So as you can see, the form over here is over here, and then these are the things that come out of it. Give this interesting shape. That's about it. I'm still working on it. So
okay, Givat, if you have time after class, then I would like to have a small talk with you. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll go to the next part of the course, and I think Givat is already working at 3D, but we are going to first get a grasp on what the fundamentals are of 3D development. Okay. Mr. Allen, what is 3D? What does it stand for?
Hello.
Hey.
I think it's 3 dimension.
Okay. So which dimensions?
I don't know. From what I gather, from what I have seen, it's sort of represent the volume of an object, isn't it? like the height, the width, and what does you call it? Height, width, and the breadth, I think. Is
Exactly.
it?
Exactly. It's the X, the Y, and the Z axis. Okay. So I'm just gonna show you what a 3D model is. Let me just remove this. Can you see my screen? So this is a very basic 3D modeling program. You can use Blender, which is free. I use Cinema 4D, which is more used as a motion graphic. But either way, as you can see, an object, I can just summon an object. Is a 3D object is basically consisting of 3 axes. You see them here, the X, the Y, and the Z axis. I always forget which one is which. This is the Z. This is the X, and the Y axis is the top. Okay. And as you can see, what do you see when you're looking at this sphere, Tanaka? What do you see?
I guess maybe that it's hollow.
Yeah, it is, but it's also not kind of really round, is it? It's not kind of really round, it's kind of edgy, right? So when we look at this object, we can see what a 3D model actually basically is. It's points.
Can you hear me? I can't hear anything.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
No.
Can't you hear me? Who can? Am I audible or not?
I can hear you though.
Okay. Okay.
You are audible.
Good. So basically, a 3D model is kind of these kind of points in space, right? And they're connected with a wire. That's why we call this a wire frame. It's a frame made out of wires and connective nodes, right? And because they're just a small number of them, it's not that beautifully round. But for the purpose of our demonstration, that's not really important. And what happens is, you see, if I go and look at this from a sort of a graph perspective, you see here this the Z and the Y axis, and these are just points in space, basically. Points in a 3-dimensional space. And when I move these points in space, right, I change the shape of the object, but basically I'm just changing the coordinates of one of these points in this 3-dimensional graph, right? And that's how we see volumes. Now, we call this a low poly model. So these are all polygons, all these kind of squares, right? They call polygons. This is a low poly model. Whereas if we can create the same sphere, right? I put the same sphere here. And I make this 100, right? I see that it's far more rounded because it has far more polygons, right? But this is taking more for the computer to calculate, because when you're in a 3D game, or if you're in VR or whatever, and you're moving around an object, the computer has to calculate all the time where are all these points in time in space at 60 frames per second. And also when I create a material on it, so for instance this is just a material put on it, right? It has to calculate all the time how where this image, and this is on top of this mesh, you know, on top of the wireframe, is related to you, and has to calculate it really fast. So every time you create a high poly model, it becomes really difficult for the computer to calculate, and low poly is kind of easier for the computers to calculate. And also when you come with lightings, you create lighting in a scene, now it has to calculate how the lighting relates to the object, and then how that kind of is affecting the object and the other object in relation to that, because I can also make this very glossy, you know, like sorry. See, I can make this kind of glossy, and now it has to calculate all this glossiness also, right? You see? So this is what the basics of a 3D model actually consists of. Now, you can model this in a 3D program, right? But easier even is that you can download it. You don't have to design everything yourself. You can just say, well, I can make a little bit of cubes and I make a project out of that. If you want, I can put you a link of Blender on it, and you can follow Blender tutorials to make this. But it's not that important. You can also, if you want to create something, let me just see this. Okay, you can have programs that are like Turbo Squid. And here you can find 3D models for free. And you can download basically anything you want, you know? So I can say a cube, and I can download a cube, right? So you don't have to model everything by yourself. It's far easier to download something, okay? You have to look for the specific thing that you need. I'll put these links also in the link folder in the drive, okay? Is it clear to everybody? So there are things you can download, and then there are things that you can just build. Now, the program that we're going to use already has a lot of models. So Mozilla Hubs, I'm going to put this link in. This is where we're going to test our model. And I just want to really make you feel comfortable with the idea that it doesn't have to be in here. I'm not going to be, you know, giving you grades or anything at the end of the course. I'm not going to say you're passing and you're not passing. For me, everybody here already has a pass, but I just want you to give yourself the chance to explore a little bit, you know. So in this sense, Mozilla Hubs is allowing you to create, it's changed since the last time. It's changed. Spoke here. So this is the builder program for Mozilla Hubs. And start with a new project, right? And this is basically building a metaverse. Right? Are you guys still there and alive? So I'm going to put the link in the link folder.
Yes.
But this is important to note. In this program, which you can just download, you don't have to download. You can put it in your browser. You can create an account, and if you have created your account, right, you can start building directly. And there's an architecture kit. where you can get, you know, models in. Here you have all kind of shapes and forms. So when you make your drawings, you can just use these things to start building. You have pillars, there are roofs, there are windows. So you can basically create all kinds of shapes already. I just have to delete this. Now, I'll want you to all to just check it and get a little bit of a sense of how it feels or how it looks. There's a tutorial that I would suggest you would follow in the beginning, but it's just to get you a little bit comfortable with this idea. And next week we'll talk about it a little bit more, how to use it and what to do. But here you can see already that you can download all kinds of objects and models, and you can look for them here. Like if you want to incorporate a tree, you can get all kinds of trees. And then you have to think about what I said about these high poly models, these high polygon models, which a lot of details, they don't work in this. So some of these models are really high detailed, but they don't work in this program. So you have to sometimes trial and error, put things in it. If they work, they work, and if they don't, they don't. So basically what you see here is, this is where you can source the things you want to put in your environment. This is what is in your environment. You have a skybox that makes, and this is how you can adapt. So this is where you can change the kind of the attributes of the environment. If there's any questions, by the way, please let me know. I'm just going forward with this. The spawn point is where you begin the experience, because when you publish to Hubs, it goes directly online and you can allow other people to access your space, including me. And then there you have it. You're building a metaverse. I feel that there are questions coming up. Anyone? No?
Yes, I have a.
Yes.
I'm wondering. Okay, since this is like a whole new software for most of us, okay, I personally, won't it take a longer time to pull this off than if we did it in the software we are familiar with?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you there. Can you just repeat, please?
Okay, so just like Gifford did, I realized he was using Revit, and it's possible that most of us are familiar with certain software, and we might find this new website, is it a bit harder? And
everybody can do whatever they want, and to be honest, for me, the whole course is about more of the thinking about these structures and thinking about what is important, right? And what is possible, okay? And it's not about the final result. But I just want to show you all kind of the opportunities that there are online, that you don't have to download any program or whatever, that you can already access, and it's easy to use, and how easy it is actually to create a metaverse. Now, where we are today, we are supposed to be already in, you know, creating sketches, right? And like Gifa did just some drawings, it, I think, you know, would be helpful. So Precious, if you look at Gifa, it's also kind of on paper, you know, you start to draw shapes, or you start to think about what you want to create and organize space. And what works, and what doesn't work, right? And then from that paper design, you start to try to draw I think I'm going too fast now, but what you try to draw is your building, not in a 3D thing like this, but from the side, from the top. It doesn't have to be that complicated. From the side and from the top, and the this from this angle, and from the top, from the side, from the front, from the top, so that you have a bit of an idea of how these dimensions work, right? And that from that point onward, you can say, how can I transfer that to a 3D program? So basically, I'm just gonna summarize where we are so far. So listen up. We had our original research into where do we come up with, where do our ideas come from? You know, and it gave you some pointers towards cultural heritage and that kind of stuff. Because yeah, where do we design? From our own background, our own, you know, and I think Gifat, you know, gave a good example of how these things work. Now, secondly, we took these inspirations and we created a mood board. We just narrowed it down a little bit more. What kind of other ideas do we find important in regards to navigation, right? Because as we just saw in the presentation about VR, our environment is our user interface. The way we organize these shapes, that is the way we experience the space. And we can do a lot more with that than just traditional architecture. Like Gifat showed us, you can just create shapes and forms that allow for completely new navigation. Even interactive things, you know, you touch a wall, things change or whatever, right? Then we started, and that was where we are today, to draw basic sketches. Could be even like this, you know, like kid drawings, but just to give me a certain idea of like, hey, I want this to look like this, right? Could be a little bit more experienced, like this maybe. I don't know how good you can draw, but I think even a drawing like a kid drawing would give, with colors, gives you an idea of where you want to go. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect, okay? And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. But that's where we are today. Now, to see how you can create 3D models, either you use Blender, I'm going to give you the link, or you're going to do that in Spoke, and you just create these simple shapes and you add them together and try to create the fundamentals for your architecture by just dragging them in. And in the tutorial, you can find ways that you can manipulate, you know, the shape, the direction of the objects. It's really, really that easy. Or you can use your own software that you want to use, but this is free. This is accessible, right? You want to use a mouse when you're doing this, by the way. That's a very important step. You want to use a mouse. And then, you know, and then we kind of look at it next week. How far did you get? What can we change? What is a good design? What is spatial experience, you know? And with this, you can publish it so that we can actually go online and see it for ourselves. I can even put my headset on and see it in virtual reality with Hubs. I kid you not. It's really weird and cool. So I hope that everybody got the breakdown. I didn't go too fast, right? Simple steps, like I showed you the basic workflow, from idea to concept development to 3D modeling through, you know, publishing and iterations. Is it clear? So for next week, I just want you guys all and girls all to continue working on your sketches and try to see if you can model something. Quite basically, it doesn't have to be brilliant or anything, but I really would like to see where the ideas come from. I think obviously Gifat gave a good example. These steps are very discreet in his Miro board. You know, he created his background, archiving the information from his heritage. Then he looked at modern examples. Then he took some simple drawings, and then he took the 3D model. Yeah, that worked really well. So I hope to see you all next week. We're gonna do a little bit more design, and then and also Sunday we have a little bit more design and a presentation. And that's already the course is over for some of you, and for others it's just beginning. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Gifat, can you keep can you stay online, please? Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And Fatu, you can stop the recording, I think, now.